Welcome back, sixth graders. We are in our sixth grade textbook on chapter 3, doing lesson 23, which you will find on page 56 and 57 of your textbook. What you need to do is make sure that you have a pencil and paper and that you're following along with us and taking notes to make sure that you understand exactly what's happening. And so today we're going to be talking about two-digit divisors. Right here, we have the dividend 7,830 divided by 31. And so in this equation, our quotient, we're going to end up with 3 digits. And so that's important to realize this. Now, when we're looking at this, we don't really want to do the long division process of 31 divided into 78 and then multiplying it. We want to try to use our trick that we learned in the last lesson of our multiples of 10. So looking at this number, what is compatible? What multiplication facts can we help determine are compatible to divide this? So we can see that 30, our divisor, or 31, our divisor, the multiple of 10 is 30, right? We could round it up to 40, but 30 is actually closer. So we're going to use the number 30. And we're going to take this and we can do it 2 different ways. We can say 30 into 6,000 because we can round it down. We can say 30 into 9,000, and that's for the range that we're going to be using to estimate. And so looking at these, what are we guessing will probably 30 going into 6,000, approximately how many times do you think it's going to happen? I'm going to say we're going to have a 2 in there, right? Probably around there, and then 30, because 30 goes into 62 times. Then we're going to add our zeros, right? So 30 goes into 6,200 times. And so that's one way that we could estimate our answer here. Let's look down at 30 going into 9,000, or 9,000 being our dividend. So looking at this, we can say 30 goes into 90 3 times. And so then we would just add up our zeros, it would be 300. So our range for this answer is going to be somewhere between 200 and 300. So that's our estimated range. And that's when it's asking you about estimated range. This is what it wants to know. Approximately, what number are you going to come up with? All right, let's look at this number, 844. All right, and we have the divisor of 28. Looking here, we can see that 30 is probably the closest multiple of 10 we can come up with to get closest to this answer. And so we're going to think about 30, and it's going to go into either 600 or 900. Now, why didn't I pick 800? Well, simple. 3 doesn't go into 8. Not evenly. So you're looking for a number that it goes into it evenly. So 600 or 900. And so multiples of 10 is not an exact science. It's a guess. We're guesstimating. We're estimating. So we're picking numbers that are close to our divisor, the multiple of our 10s, whether it's 30 or 10 or 50. You want a dividend that can go into evenly. So let's look over here on the left. We have 600 divided by 30. Well, we know that 30 goes into 600 twice. And so we're going to say that that is going to be 2. And then we're going to bring up our other zeros. And we're going to say that that's going to be 20. And so 20 times 30 is 600. And so we can say that 28 goes into 844 approximately 600 times. Let's look at the bottom, 30 and 900. Well, 900 is actually kind of closer to 844 than 600. And so we can look at 30 and 90 and say that 30 is going to go into 90 3 times. And then we can add up our 0. And so 30 goes into 930 times. And so between 20 and 30, my guess is that 30 is going to be a closer call for how many times 28 goes into 844. So but our estimated range is going to be between 20 and 30. All right, and so if we were to do the math on this, it's going to show us right here. 28 goes into 884 3 times, right? 3 times 28 is 84. Bring down your digit of 4. 28 goes into 4. It does not, so that's a 0 with a remainder of 4. So we were close with our 30 divided into 900 being 30 because 28 divides into 844 30 times with a remainder of 4. If you're a little confused, stop, pause this, focus on the equation, check it out, and see if you can figure out how we did that again. All right, moving on. Next, we're going to talk about dividing by a 2-digit divisor. All right, we have here, the director of a bake sale asked volunteers to make packages of 2 dozen cookies. A total of 3,758 cookies were donated for the sale. How many packages will the volunteers make? So we need to think about how we could solve this word problem. Well, we could divide 3,758 by 24 because the total of 3,758 cookies would be distributed into sets of 2 dozen cookies, and 2 dozen equal to 24. So let's look at this, right? We've got 2 dozen. So here we've got 3,758 divided by our 2 dozen cookies, which is also 24. All right, so where will we write the first digit in the quotient? Let's look at this. So 24 doesn't go into 3, but it does go into 37. So we're going to write that over the 37. So let's look here. Okay, so right here, right? 1 times 24 will then be 24, right? And so we'll just multiply that out, and then we'll subtract 24 from 37. And we're going to get 13. All right, now 24 does not go into 13, but it does go into 135. And so we'll take 24 and we'll divide it into 135. All right, now that is how many times? We've got 25 into 100 is probably 4, and then 135 is probably another 5. So look at that, 20 or 20 and 140 you could do, right? We're going to get 5. 5 times 24 is going to be 120. So then we will subtract. We'll get 15. And we'll do it again. We'll bring down our 8. 24 into 158. How are we going to look at this? Well, it says 24 goes into 158 6 times. 6 times 24 is 158. Well, we know that 120 is 5. So we can deduce that 6 would be another 24, would be 144. So we could easily fit 6 into 158. So 144, and then we would subtract and get 14. So we would have 156 with the remainder of 14. Now, when you look at that, you can see that your range, when you go all the way back up to 3,700 divided by 24, you can already tell what your range is going to be by the digit that you put here, your 100 range. It's going to be somewhere between 100 and 200. All right. And so if we're guesstimating, we know that 24 into 37 goes once. So our automatic estimation is going to say, it's going to be somewhere between 100 and 200, right there. Probably less than 200 because it doesn't go in here twice. So it's going to be under 100. Under 200. All right, let's move on. Oops. So well, since we have 156 packages total, 14 remaining. Okay, so right here, and sorry for stumbling, I'm reading notes while I'm talking at the same time and trying not to lose my place. So the next number we have here is 2,585 divided by 38. Excuse me, I'm yelling. Right here, we're going to start with thinking of our multiples of 10. 38 is a multiple, is basically 40 when you do your multiples of 10 trick. So let's think of that as 40. And let's think of this number as 2,400 because 2,400 and 40, 24 and 4, are compatible. So let's look and see what do we get if we divided 24 by 4 or 2,800 by 40, because that also is compatible. So 2,400 by 40, we would put 6 because we would slide it over one spot because we're guesstimating and we're not really doing 4 into 24, we're doing 40 into 240. So you need to move it over one more place. So that, then you would add up your 0 and you would be at 60. So 60 times 4 is 2,400. Looking down at this problem, you have 40 into 2,800. And 4 into 28 is 7. So 40 into 280 is 7. And then you add your 0, and that's 70. So your range is going to be somewhere between 60 and 70. So let's go over here to our problem. And we're going to start in the second row. And we know that this quotient is only going to have 2 digits because 38 doesn't go into 25, but it does go into 258. So you're going to need to put your first digit on top of the 8. So looking at this, 38 going into 258, we can say that it's going to be 6, approximately 6, because 40 into 24 is 6, right? And that only leaves about 18 more. And so we're going to add that 6. So 6 times 38 is 228. That's going to leave you a remainder of 30. 30 is smaller than 38, so you're on the right track. Now, if you ever get a remainder that's larger than your divisor, then you simply need to go up and adjust your quotient to a digit up and redo your math on that section. Okay, so 38 doesn't go into 30, but it does go into 305. So let's look here. We're going to do 38 into 305, and we're going to get 7. 7 times 38 is 266. Then you're going to subtract. You're going to get a remainder of 39. Of 39. So you get a remainder of 39. So looking at this, you have 67. With a remainder of 39. So that's where I was talking about, where they did it wrong. And they were showing you an example of, oops, 7 gave us too many, so we got to go back up and change it to an 8. 8 times 38 is 304. That's a lot closer. We're going to have a remainder of 1. Now we know we did the problem correctly, because when we went back, we found our mistakes. And so this is something that's really important about long division, is that you can catch yourself on your mistakes. So you should be as accurate as possible, because sometimes it's pretty obvious when there's mistakes, because your remainders will be larger than your divisors, and you don't want that. All right, let's move on. Next, we have 3 equations here. And we're going to be talking about, let me see my notes for 1 second. Let me pause this. 1 second. All right, sorry about that. I had to check my notes for a second. All right, so we have our 3 equations here, and we are going to look at them and try to solve them on our own. And just remember that when you're looking at these, it's easier to do the factor to multiples of 10. Okay, so that helps you do the multiples of 10. Just remember that an estimate gives you a good idea of what the exact answer will be, but sometimes the exact quotient, while so close to the estimate, will be outside of our range. So right here we have 11 and 896, and you might think of that as 10 and 900 and say, it's going to go in there about 90 times. But until you do the math fully out, you won't know if that's actually accurate. So go ahead and pause this recording, take time and solve these answers, these problems, and we'll see what your answers are. All right. Okay, for your first one, you should have gotten 81 with a remainder of 5. If you did not get that, pause this and look at the steps here and see how we came to that answer. Okay. Next, we have 78. Again, if you're not sure if your answer doesn't line up with mine, check out your steps and see where you went wrong. Then last of all, we have 221 with a remainder of 13. Okay, all of these have quite a few steps in them, so just take your time and look back at what you did, may or may not have done right or wrong, and correct yourself. Of course, ask questions as needed to your closest adult, or you can always text or email me. And so those are your answers. Okay, make sure, of course, that when you're doing this, that you're lining your digits up. It is extremely important to line these digits up. That will help you with your answers. Okay, now we're getting on to our assignment. Complete numbers 1 through 32 even on page 56 and 57. And you are going to need to log on to the next video to find out exactly what the directions for that are. So I'll see you there.